Hey guys, welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. It's we're going to stop referring to these as weeks and referring to them as shows, which would make this show number 5. We have to make that adjustment because it was my birthday last week, and I was drunk pretty much the whole time. So Carla, I appreciate your patience and welcome back to the show.
Thanks, and welcome back from the Caribbean. Apparently, I didn't know you were taking a big vacation for your birthday.
Everywhere is the Caribbean if you're in the right frame of mind. It doesn't seem to matter. I'm probably gonna have to stop wearing this to work, but maybe by tomorrow though. I don't know.
I was gonna say I'm gonna have to remind you that Columbus is not on the Gulf Coast.
No, it is not. Although the weather's been pretty nice so far this season. We haven't had any nasty cold ones yet, unfortunately. Hey, yeah. we have some good games coming up this weekend, and we should probably jump right in. We've got we're Big Ten heavy as usual, and there are a couple of games at noon that you and I respectively are interested in. You want to start us off with Purdue visiting Ohio State?
Sure, I can start that one. This one, I think at the beginning of the season, before Ohio State and Purdue both started playing games, we thought this was going to be a really good game. Mm-hmm. What's happened to Purdue in the last 3 weeks? It's just been kind of shocking. They went from contender to nobody in about 3 weeks. They've had 2 straight losses, both big. Ohio State, on the other hand, likes to make things interesting, and probably a little bit more interesting than somebody in the straw hat would probably like to feel comfortable with.
Oh, I'm digging it so far. It's been great.
Great. But I will say this: Ohio State, not so great on defense.
Nope.
Purdue, not so great on offense. That's a great matchup this week. So I'm going to take Ohio State in this one. Okay.
The interesting thing about this, I mean, looking at Purdue at the beginning of the season, they should have one of the best D lines in the conference. They should have been able to figure out who their starting quarterback is right now. Neither one of those is the case. I still can't help think about this. This is an interesting little fact. There is one team in the Big Ten that has beaten Ohio State twice in the last 3 years, and it's not Michigan, it's not Nebraska, it's not Wisconsin, it's Purdue. Now, granted, both of those the wins have been in West Lafayette. We're playing in Columbus this weekend. Ohio State's defense is a mess. Last weekend they had to switch their starting fullback over to linebacker, position he hadn't played since high school. But this week it's not going to matter because Purdue's offense is awful. Ohio State will win this one big. Next, we have probably the best test for your Nittany Lions so far as they go on the road to play Iowa. What you got there?
This is, I mean, I keep saying this week in and week out, this is a big game for Penn State, but I really do think this is a big game for Penn State. The Nits have won 4 in a row, and they're coming off of a bye week, which I wrote in my notes, is that a bad thing? Because they were rolling so well for those last 4 weeks. Was taking a week off going to kill the momentum that these guys had? However, Iowa had to survive against Michigan State last week. That game went to double overtime. Did they spend too much energy? They're not coming off the bye. So I think you're right. I think it's going to be one of the best Big Ten games of the week. And I'm going to pick with my heart on this one and say that Penn State finds a way to pull this one out. But that's really just, it's going to be your ugly Big Ten game of the week. It's going to be a 16-13 final. Yeah.
Sweet. I'm tempted to go with Penn State here. Again, they're the best story in the conference this year. Iowa had a rough start. They have since they lost like 30 or 40 tailbacks in the preseason, but they found this kid Mark Wiseman, who's been averaging 6 yards a carry. That has helped right the ship offensively. That's taken the pressure off of Vandenberg, and their offense looks better now than it has for the season. I'm going to give the edge to the Hawkeyes here simply because it's a home game. But in the Big Ten Conference, that's usually a pretty big advantage. So I'm going Iowa for this one.
Okay.
One more Big Ten game to get to. This is the battle for the state up north. This year, Michigan State visits the Big Hole in Ann Arbor. What do you see for that one?
I see that I wish it was a night game. Because I think the game would have a little bit more atmosphere if it was a night game. I don't know. Afternoon in the big house just doesn't do it for me as much as night games in the big house do it for me.
There's no such thing as atmosphere at Michigan anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Ohio State fan. Michigan State's going for 5 in a row in this series over Michigan, and I don't know. Michigan's coming off of 2 pretty significant wins over Purdue and Illinois. They're not necessarily the top opponents in the Big Ten, but they were convincing wins. Michigan State was on the other end of that double overtime game with Iowa on the losing end. I don't know. I think the Spartans might be reeling after that, and I'm going to give the edge to the Wolverines in this one. I think they're going to win at home.
I agree for this one. Michigan State, we talked about Penn State improving. We've talked about Iowa improving. Michigan State has gone the other direction. The team's offense outside of the running game is awful. The receivers can't catch the ball, and that's when the quarterback's able to get it to them. On the other side, Michigan's defense is playing better. Looks a lot better now than it did against Notre Dame. Granted, Purdue and Illinois will make that happen, but it also looks like Denard has got his stuff figured out and is more comfortable than he's been since the start of the conference season. I think Michigan not only wins this one, but I think they're going to roll on Saturday. I think this will be a statement game for the Wolverines. Interesting. In terms of rankings and whatnot, perhaps the biggest game of the day on Saturday will be the South Carolina Gamecocks visiting Florida. What you got there?
Gosh, I like this game. This one, and it's not just because I live in SEC country now. It's if you follow the way that everybody has beat everybody else, Florida knocked off LSU. South Carolina lost to LSU. So if you do the math, in theory, Florida should beat South Carolina. But for whatever reason, I've just kind of got that, I'm not sure that's really going to happen. Coming off of the loss to LSU, I think South Carolina's going to come out and play with a chip on their shoulder. Florida didn't look good last week against Vandy. They never really pulled away in that game like they should have. But that's what Florida's been this year. They've just kind of been there in the first half, and then they find a way to win the game in the second half. The only reason why I'm going to edge Florida in this game is, again, the same thing I keep saying, is because they're playing at home in the swamp. Mm-hmm. If this game was at South Carolina, I think I would probably give the edge to the Gamecocks, but I'm going to go Gators in this one.
Okay. I for some reason I like Steve Spurrier. Especially now that he's not at Florida, that helps some. But I my sense is that he's probably getting towards the end of his career. You may not think he's got a whole lot of other really honest shots at a national title, and maybe this team is one of the best ones that he's going to have. I'm cautious because they lost on the road a week ago. You have to go on the road again this week in a place that's almost as tough to play against a team that for part of the season has looked better than LSU. I think I got to go with Florida in this game, as much as it hurts me to say. The Welcome to the Big 12 tour continues for West Virginia, this time in Morgantown, though, when perhaps the biggest surprise in the country comes to visit Kansas State, visiting Morgantown. Besides burning couches and a drunken student body, what do you see there?
I say get your popcorn and settle down on the couch for a good one. I think this is going to be probably the most entertaining game of the week. Easily. If nothing else, you've got two potential Heisman candidates going against each other in Colin Klein and Geno Smith. Mm-hmm. The scheduling gods were not kind to West Virginia, having to go 2 consecutive road trips to Texas in consecutive weeks.
Oh, it's too bad.
Yeah. I get that, but it's and then have to play Kansas State. I mean, it's just. I think it's a lot for West Virginia to try to overcome. And I'm not going to lie, I think this year is special for Kansas State. I thought that last year. I was disappointed when I saw them lose. I think Colin Klein, Bill Snyder, I don't know, maybe I'm drinking too much purple juice, but I like Kansas State this year. And again, maybe I'm picking with my heart. I think Kansas State's going to win this one, but it's going to be a silly offensive display. It's going to be one of those like 35-41 kind of games. It's just going to be ridiculous. So settle in for a good one.
Okay, I'm going to differ with you in one respect. We obviously know about West Virginia's offense. That's pretty well documented. The thing that I'm curious about is K-State's defense. In terms of points allowed, they're giving up just 16.5 a game, which makes them 19th in the country at this point. There certainly isn't going to be West Virginia Baylor, and I think the score may be even a little more limited than you were looking at. However, I see the same outcome. I think Kansas State wins this in Morgantown, and maybe not quite as many couches get burned on Saturday night.
And I hope if that's the case that somebody finally takes Colin Klein seriously for Heisman. He needs to be in that debate, and he's not.
He does. We have a sentimental pick for our last one. Back in the 90s, this was inevitably the game of the year. And if you think back to 1991, and look at that ball going wide right. We have Florida State visiting Miami. It's at night. Miami is a huge underdog. But you throw out the records. What the hell? What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, the first thing I think is going to happen is that I hope maybe some fans show up for this game.
That would be nice, you think? That would be good.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of the screen grabs. That seems to be the meme of the week now in college football, is taking pictures of the empty Sun Life Stadium or whatever it's called now, Joe Robbie, whatever the stadium is in Miami. I mean, it's empty, and it's been like that for all year.
The Hurricanes need to go find a decent sized high school building in Miami and play their games there.
Yeah, pretty much.
At least look better.
So Miami, okay, so they don't have home field advantage. That's an obvious. In fact, there will probably be more Seminoles fans there than Hurricanes fans. Miami's been unpredictable. I mean, they knocked off NC State, which now looks like a huge win.
Yep.
But they got trounced by Kansas State and Notre Dame. And so it's kind of one of those, which Miami team is going to show up for this one. Personally, I don't think it's going to matter. I think the Seminoles are going to win this one big. Miami's even dealing with an injury at quarterback. As I was prepping for this, they were trying to figure out who's going to start for them this week, and of course that's not a good sign going into any game, especially a game against a rival. So I don't think this is close. I think Florida State rolls.
Does Bernie Kosar have eligibility left? He was only there for 2 years, right?
Maybe.
They could bring back Kosar. They could bring back Testaverde, whoever they want to. There is no home field advantage, which is too bad, because this rivalry game like this should be all about that stuff. Florida State is loaded. Miami is inconsistent. Florida State wins. There's a reason Florida State's favored by 20. And I think whether a kicker can hit a field goal isn't going to matter. Florida State's going to win this one big. Okay, that's all we have for this weekend. Carla, you're going to be in Pittsburgh next week.
I am going to be in Pittsburgh next week. We can do this in the same room.
Look for something special next week, kids. Maybe guest stars. Maybe actual beer being consumed while we're doing the show. Who knows? It should be a fun one. Enjoy your games this weekend. Carla, thank you once again.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you next week.
We will see you.